What's up, guys? It's Casey Zogelman, aka the Fourth Sanderson Sister, coming at you with another Hocus Pocus What If video. In today's video, I'm exploring what might have happened in Hocus Pocus if Eddie, the fake cop, believed what Max had to say. What if he took the time to examine the book? What if he followed them to the town hall and saw the spell take effect on the adults there? What might have been different if he did believe the kids? Well, pop a squat, get comfortable, because this is a long one, and let's find out. We all know how the scene plays out originally.
Officer, we need your help.
What's the problem?
Well, you see, it's like this. I broke into the old Sanderson house and I brought the witches back from the dead. See, I even have the book.
You lit the black flame candle.
And he's a virgin.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah.
Really?
Officer, this is not a prank. Really?
Hey! I put my life on the line to protect this community, and you punks pull this?
What's so funny, Eddie?
Just a bunch of kids pulling my chain. I thought I was a real cop.
But what if the conversation didn't end so abruptly? Eddie clearly knows about the legend of the black flame candle. He doesn't even glance at the book, though. Since this is before the magic shop and the museum has been shut down for a very long time, it should concern him that someone is openly admitting he broke into the place that had been shut down for safety. This is where we start to deviate.
Well, you see, I just moved here. Well, you see, it's like this. I broke into the old Sanderson house and I brought the witches back from the dead. See, I even have the book.
Max holds out the book to the cop. Eddie looks it over, having not seen a souvenir or any prop like this before on any costume he'd seen. Not even from people dressed as the Sanderson sisters.
You lit the black flame candle.
Yeah.
He proceeds to take the book from Max before this goes any further. If it's real, he has no choice but to call the cops on the kids for breaking and entering. He starts to lift the cover when all three kids scream at him not to open it. Even the cat hisses at him. Alright, this is a prank, and he's happy to return the favor.
And he's a virgin.
Come here. Are you a virgin?
Yeah.
Really?
Look, I'll get it tattooed on my forehead, okay?
Officer, this is not a prank. Really?
Hey! I put my life on the line to protect this community, and you punks pull this? Get at it.
Come on, Danny.
Take that cat with you.
But instead of immediately running away, Allison turns back and looks Eddie in the eyes and says, "We really are being followed by three women, even if you don't believe they're witches. I would expect an officer to at least be concerned about that."
What's so funny, Eddie?
Just a bunch of kids pulling my chain. I thought I was a real cop.
While they were driving away, Eddie couldn't stop thinking about the look in that girl's eyes. Her gaze was too serious to be a prank. But it was, right? Of course it was. That book wasn't real. Right? They looked legitimately afraid when he tried to open it. Not many teenage boys would openly admit, in front of a girl that presumably they liked, that they were a virgin, let alone to an adult. He'd heard those stories about the Sanderson sisters since he was a kid, but he never believed them. Well, he did when he was a kid, and maybe a little bit when the museum was closed down to a bunch of mysterious accidents. He glanced up at the sky and saw the full moon. Why was he actually considering this? As he drove over a manhole cover, he made a U-turn. "Where are we going, Eddie?" asked his girlfriend. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but I've got to follow my gut. Blame the costume, but I think those kids I said were pranking me might actually be in some kind of trouble," he told her over the sound of the manhole cover banging again. He thought he'd heard a grunt. "What did they tell you?" "You'll never believe me. I don't even know if I believe me. They said the boy brought the Sanderson sisters back from the dead and they were being chased." "What?" "Yeah, he did have a spell book with him, but when I went to open it, they begged me not to." "Do you have any idea how crazy this sounds, Ed?" "Yes, I do. But they actually seemed scared, and the girl told me they were really being followed by someone. I just can't let this go. Something's telling me they need help. I've only seen you have a hunch like this one other time. You were right then, and I'll bet you're right now, his girlfriend said after a pause. Maybe the kids didn't get too far. Eddie and, let's call her Margaret, because she doesn't have a name. Let's call her Margaret, Margie for short. Ride carefully down the streets of Salem, watching for any sign of the kids he encountered. Nobody was really ringing a bell, but as they cruised down a street of trick-or-treaters, they passed 3 women pulling a mask off of a kid. They were dressed like the Sanderson sisters. He pulled to the side to listen in.
Sisters! All Hallows Eve has become a night of frolic, where children wear costumes and run amok. Amok. Oh, really, just one child.
No, the lot of them. Which means there are many for the taking. We must find my book. Mary, find those children who stole it. Eddie watched out of his rearview mirror as the trio of women set off after the one wearing Mary's costume. Margaret leaned over to him as he prepared to follow. You were right. They are looking for those kids with the book. And did you hear what they were saying about the other children? Yeah, I did. You want me to take you home before I follow them? Absolutely not. We're in this together. Riding off after the 3 women, they followed them to the town hall. Eddie and Margaret head inside to the Halloween party, looking for any sign of them. Eddie spots Max, Allison, and Danny talking to 2 people in a vampire costume and what was presumably Madonna. He overhears the words Mom and Dad, so he starts to feel better when he hears the little girls start screaming that they're here. At that moment, Margaret taps him on the shoulder and directs his attention to the women they'd followed there. They were still squabbling about finding the kids and the book. Look, they're with their parents now. Maybe everything will be all right. Will everybody listen up, please? Eddie and Margaret suddenly see Max on stage. What is he doing? She asked. Trying to get some help, Eddie replied. Kid's got guts. As Max makes the plea for help, Eddie and Margaret realize no one is coming to the aid of this obviously scared young man. They all think it's a prank, and when the women start playing along, it just gets worse. If the 2 of them hadn't overheard the conversation on the street between the performers, they too would have thought this was an elaborate ruse. They start to tap their toes to the music when they hear the kids begging their parents to cover their ears. Eddie looks at Margaret and they nod, covering their ears a second later. The toe tapping ceases as they try to hum to themselves to block out the song. As they try to make their way forward to the kids, a man in a zombie costume tries to tackle the children. They start running away with him on their trail, which causes our new heroes to have to fight their way through the crowd while still blocking out the noise. The kids got away as someone started dancing with the zombie. Margaret and Eddie remove their hands from their ears as they see the performers running off. Margaret grabs a friend of hers by the shoulders. Colin, we need some help over here. Come on, she says, but he just keeps dancing. Colin? Margie, they can't stop, Eddie shouted from a few people away. I've tried. I can't even get them to stop with physical force. Then it really was a spell. Margie was shocked. They are witches. Eddie, we have to find those kids. They went this way. The couple run out of the town hall, absolutely stunned that those women really were the Sanderson sisters. Eddie felt a deep sense of responsibility to those 3 kids since he was the one they originally asked for help. The badge might be fake, but he was going to act like a real cop tonight. They followed the witches to an alleyway, then huddled together, listening to the trio squabble one more time. When Winifred came by dragging Mary with her, they pulled into each other and started to make out to keep cover until Sarah ran away behind her sisters. You're not a bad kisser when you're hiding from witches, Margaret told him. Very funny, he said, as they heard a crash in the alleyway. The kids and the cat started to run past them, but Eddie caught their attention. Whoa, 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 hold on, guys, he said, and the kids hit the brakes and turned around. Wait, the cop? Danny asked. First off, I'm not really a cop. It's a costume. Second, my name's Eddie. This is my girlfriend, Margaret. Call me Margie. And we believe you. What made you change your mind? Max asked him. You wrote us off without so much as a second look. That young lady right there. Eddie pointed to Allison. You told me you were disappointed that no one was concerned about people following you. You got my conscience going, so we came back to find you. You can imagine our surprise when we found out you were telling the truth about the witches. So what's the plan and how can we help keep you guys safe? Give us the rundown. Max, Allison, and Danny tell them everything that had happened and what they know about the Sanderson sisters. They got another big surprise when Binks spoke to them and introduced himself. Their biggest concern was Mary's ability to track them wherever they go. They'd never be able to shake the witches at that rate. Eddie and Margie had seen the magic in action, so they really had to be careful when trying to fight back. When Margaret suggests getting the authorities involved, even Eddie says it's a bad idea. They'd be laughed right out of the station. Even if they did get them involved, somehow they all knew the witches could use a spell to stop them. All it would take is one cop being caught by surprise, and the Sanderson sisters had them. Danny asked if Eddie could just, shoot them, but he had his license expire and his guns were sold so he could pay bills for a while. Allison had a plan to get rid of all three of them at once, but it would involve another break-in. Eddie just so happened to have a skeleton key that he got off of his cheating ex-wife, so off to the high school they went. Just about beat for beat, everything happens in the same way here, with the adults pitching in to scare the witches towards the kiln, kinda as it does in the first in the original script. When it lights up, Margie's gonna shield Danny from the sight of three people being burned alive, because no child should ever need to see that or want to see that, and yeah, she doesn't need to see that. Allison actually is gonna kind of hide behind Eddie as the screaming kicks up, because yikes. Margaret takes the kids outside to watch the smoke clear, and Eddie checks for remains after the power is shut off and it cools down some. Nothing left. With that, he joined the others celebrating outside. Max and Binks talk, while Allison and Danny dance around. Margie huddles up to Eddie and smiles as he rubs her back. "Any chance we might have a couple of those someday?" she asked him. "Yeah, maybe. Might be fun to have somebody to pass this story down to," he laughed. "Let's get these kids home." "Don't forget the bike! Hey, you should let Danny ride on it." Margie and Eddie take the kids to his motorcycle a block from the town hall, and Danny gets a ride on it with Binks as Margaret walks with Allison and Max back to the Dennison house. No one was home yet, but Max wrote it off as their parents still having a great time, since the spell was broken with the witches dead. Margaret and Eddie kind of share a look at that statement. "Listen, I'd feel better if the two of us stuck around until your parents get home. It was a scary night. You guys don't need to be alone. Allison, let's call your parents, let them know where you are, and tell them you're spending the night with some friends and there's adult supervision. That's all they need to know for now. We need to get our story straight for when Max and Danny's parents get home," Eddie told everyone. "Yeah, that would actually be really great if you guys stayed," Max said, especially for Danny. "Can we ride the bike again?" she asked Eddie from the other room. "It's getting late, partner. Maybe in the morning I can give you another turn," he laughed. While everyone's getting settled at the house and coming up with their story for why these two strangers were hanging out with the kids, of course, the Sanderson sisters revive. Again, beat for beat, everything plays out how we know it. The witches come back, they kidnap Jay and Ice, they feel hopeless, and while Eddie and Margaret sleep on the sofa downstairs, we do have Max and Allison still try to help Binks by opening the book. The Sanderson sisters do their thing by breaking in, but this time, there are adults there to help. Eddie hears a scream from upstairs and he dashes up the stairs to see Max trying to grab the book from Winifred as Allison is trying to protect Danny from Sarah and Mary. Eddie jumps into the fight without hesitation, Margaret right on his heels. She shoves off the two witches who want to snatch Danny, slapping both of them pretty darn hard across the face and going for a couple of gut punches. She knows how to scrap. Binks was knocked out in the corner. Eddie grabs the book with Max and pulls it away from Winifred, but he breaks the one promise he made to himself in the process. Never hit a woman. Of course, that smack in the face didn't do much but make Winifred angry, and he felt that electricity sizzle all the way through his body. Eddie keeps a death grip on the book as he is blown backwards. Margaret and Allison are going toe-to-toe with Mary and Sarah, who are surprisingly strong themselves, and the four women were exchanging blows. Eddie feels his grip starting to go slack as he grunts and groans through the pain when it suddenly stops. Max's own grunts take over, and Eddie sees him standing between him and Winifred. Sarah managed to snatch Margie's arms and force them behind her back, lulling her into a state of dormancy with a quiet melody. Mary's brute strength bests Allison, and she grabs both her and Danny. Eddie, recovering, pulls himself to his knees and sees everyone in a prisoner state. He had to get everyone out of this somehow. He looked at the book in his arms, looked at Winifred, and got an idea. "You little pest! I have had enough of thy trickery, boy, Winifred shouted. Now take thy last breaths. Hey! Eddie dragged himself up, the spellbook open in his arms and his hand gripping a page. Let everyone go or I start ripping this book apart one page at a time. You can't destroy it, Max groaned at him. Oh, really? Eddie yanks on the page and book has a physical reaction. Winifred sees the pain in her book's eyes and ups the pain for Max. Let go of my book or the boy dies, she threatened him. Let go of the boy or I shred this book, he said, glancing at the pocket knife on the dresser. He grabs it quickly and stabs into the pages, ripping through about 5 of them. Book flinches. I can cut this thing up faster than you can kill him. Winifred was clearly surprised by this development, and she was thinking. Eddie dug the knife in again, and he could have sworn he heard a little screech from the book. Stop! Winifred shouted, dropping her lightning. Max hit the floor. Stop hurting him! Then call off your sisters. Now. Eddie started to rip the pages again. Let them go, sisters, Winifred said. Sarah and Mary let go of their hostages and walked behind their sister. Give me my book. Not until all of us are outside of this house, he threatened, keeping the knife pressed in the pages. Go on, get your stuff and get out of the house. You'll get it outside. He gestured for the stairs, and begrudgingly each witch walked with him out of the room, grabbing their flying implements along the way. Margaret snapped out of her trance, held the girls in her arms, and looked at him nervously. He nodded to her with a smile. He had a plan. He followed them down the stairs and out the door right beside his motorcycle. All right, we did what thou hast asked of us. Now give me my book, Winifred said menacingly. Hang on a second. I've got some questions first, Eddie said. Please, wouldst thou give us the book now? Sarah asked in a lilty voice. We will leave thee and thy friends alone if you do. She was starting to get really close. Eddie saw right through it and shrugged off her advances. Shocking, Sarah. It worked with my ex-wife, but I've learned a thing or two about your type since then, he huffed. You're going to use this book for what? To restore our lives, Mary replied, so we can continue to walk the earth past tonight, Winifred said. By stealing the life from children, Sarah added, and was double slammed in the gut by her sisters. That's what I thought you'd say, Eddie huffed. You want this book? He swung his leg over his motorcycle and turned the key. Come and get it, witches! He sped off with the book in tow. Winifred growls and looks at her sisters, and they take off flying after Eddie. Margie, Allison, Danny, Max, and the newly recovered Binks ran outside to see all of them taking off. Max calls an audible and grabs the keys to the SUV. He starts to jump into the driver's seat, but he tosses the keys to Margie. He came for us. We're going to him, Max swore, and everyone climbed in the car. Eddie knows their timeline is until dawn, since Winifred said they needed to steal life force to live past tonight. He had a tank full of gas, and he was ready to ride the rest of the night if that's what it took. Of course, he didn't count on dodging lightning bolts on the road, as Winifred tried to make him wreck. He was not in a good position as the witches started to gain on him. He muttered a curse word or two as the Sanderson sisters were right on his tail. Sarah's voice started to fog his mind as he felt himself being forced to ease up on the gas. Winifred's bolts were searing into the pavement closer to his wheels. As he started to feel lightheaded, he heard the voice he loved so much. What the heck are you doing? Hit the gas! Margaret pulled up right next to him in the SUV and Eddie snapped out of it. What are you guys doing here? He yelled to the rescue team. Saving your life, Max shouted with a smirk from an open door. Right about that time, a bolt hit Eddie's cycle and blew out the tire. He started to skid, but everyone yelled at him to jump in the car. He sacrificed the one constant in his life and leapt into the vehicle, Max and Allison pulling him inside. The motorcycle crashed on the pavement, and he noticed the book was now in the hands of a cackling Winifred Sanderson. He'd lost his grip on it momentarily, and that was all it took to turn the tide for the witches. They turned tail and hurried to brew their potion. Eddie was so disappointed in himself, but Margie had other plans. She pumped the brakes and brought them to a stop on the deserted road. You listen to me, Edward Johnson. You have done a lot of good tonight for this town. If you think we're giving up now, you've got another thing coming, she said sternly. The kids of this town need all of us to keep them safe now. We turn to you for help, And you helped us, Allison said. Without you, my sister would be in their grasp right now, Max told him, and I'd probably be sprawled out, dead. You've got to help us see this thing through. You might have lost the book, but we haven't lost this fight yet. Please, Mr. Eddie, please, Danny begged him. We can't give up yet. He heard their pleas and thought to himself, it really was time to uphold this fake badge. Let's do it. Those witches are toast at sunrise, so we need to just run out the clock, he said with the most confidence he'd had in a long time. Where do you think they're going? Back to their house, Allison said. They'll brew the same potion that stole the life of my sister Emily. If we can at least stop that from happening, we have a chance, Binks said. Max saw 2 red jerseys in the car and a roll of tape. I've got an idea, he said with a smile as a song broke out in the air. What is that? It's Sarah! She's singing to lure the children in, Binks gasped. We don't have any time to lose, Eddie said. Margie, head for the museum. So, we do see come little children, and on their way back, the heroes have to dodge hypnotized children in the road. We get the scene where they trick the witches with a fake sunrise, only this time the ones in danger of losing their lives were Jay and Ice, since Danny wasn't there, and it's Eddie and Max going in together to wreck the potion, and they do free the bullies this time. There is still just enough potion left, and Winifred wants Danny to teach those do-gooders a lesson. So this leads up to the big graveyard fight, and I wanted to keep most of the beats here with the exception of one thing. Winnie's going in a 1-on-2 battle against Eddie and Max, who are playing keep away with the life potion once Binks smacks it out of her hand and Eddie catches Danny after he told her to jump off the broom. Mary and Sarah still get clowned on in the same way they did before because that's too funny to take out or change. It's perfect the way it is. We just got Margie helping out a little bit. It's fine. We're keeping that. Winifred eventually gets knocked off of her broom by the boys and turns to stone in the same way, but this time she's merely reaching for her attackers, as Max hadn't swallowed the potion because he didn't need to. In fact, he smashes it in front of her to rub salt in the wound as she starts turning to stone. Brutal, Max, brutal. The day is saved by the kids, the 2 adults, and Billy, who, yeah, we gotta keep him on the team. He gets to have his moment after getting his head knocked off by Margie with a branch. Max and the others had it a little easier with Eddie and Margaret there to help out, and they would drop by on Eddie's new motorcycle every Sunday to hang out with them. Max got his cycle license when he got older instead of just a regular car, and Danny alongside Allison were the token babysitter for Eddie and Margaret when they had kids. For Max, it was like he finally had a guy friend, like he did back in LA. Had Eddie not been there, Danny might have been killed, or he would have sacrificed himself for her. So, there you go. That's my take on what might have changed if the fake cop, Eddie, had believed Max's story to begin with. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you're new to my channel, please remember to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't. It's free. It helps me. What helps me helps you guys get more great content like this. Thursday night, I'm back on Twitch with more 4th Plays Hogwarts Legacy at our usual time. Now, there is a little change for Black Flame Gaming on YouTube this week, as it will be on Friday night, since I will be out of town on Saturday into Sunday, but we have more Pokemon to play. Since I will be out of town for most of the weekend, you will be getting another cooking video next week, unless something happens this week at D23, which myself and Hocus Pocus Guide are kind of theorizing that we might hear something. I'm not gonna swear to it. He's very positive. I'm very much on the I don't know, it kind of seems possible, because we've heard so much talk from Bet lately about that. But yeah. Next week you're getting a cooking video because I'm going to be out of town and I've got a bunch of those stockpiled for occasions such as that. If you're a regular on this channel, please remember to drop a like, share your thoughts on this scenario down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Casey Zugelman, aka the 4th Sanderson Sister, and I'll see you witches and wizards later.
I am